All right, let's just roll.
Sure.
So we'll start from here right now. Jay, welcome. Thank you so much. If you could, maybe give everybody a brief kind of overview and description of who you are and what you do, and then we'll just have conversations from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Jay Mueller. I am the CEO of Camargo Insurance. And Stash and I got to know each other via doing what I do, which is we insure commercial real estate, among other things, but commercial real estate is absolutely our number one niche across the country. And we have a specific focus in multifamily. We're based here in Cincinnati. And yeah, we love working in the real estate world. That's also my side hustle, investment in real estate. I think those
Yeah.
things kind of brought us together.
We met in the same networking group that I met my wife in. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
There's that.
The running joke, at least with myself, is that Stash met his wife cold calling because he's really good at it.
That's true. Yeah. One of the themes I want to bring to this is how everybody got in, some major milestones or events, and then advice. And we'll take it from there. How did you get into real estate and insurance and what you're doing?
Yeah. So insurance, I say I got into insurance the normal way, which is via nepotism. My grandfather founded the agency in the 50s, and I always saw the insurance business as just a great opportunity. I've always been entrepreneurial minded. Started my first business when I was 12, cutting lawns, and it's just been a series of ventures ever since then. And always saw the family business opportunity as a great one. So when I graduated from college, I lived a year abroad in Spain, which is where I live again, actually. And when I moved back to Cincinnati and got into the family business, that was in 2007, which, if any of you were around then, that was an interesting time to get into any business, but certainly one where you were focusing on real estate.
Yeah.
As the market began to crash shortly after I got into the insurance business, I realized that there were entrepreneurial real estate investors. If they had cash and they were willing to take a risk, the returns were absolutely phenomenal. So my first clients were those real estate investors that were, capitalizing on that downturn in the market. And I always say the best way to learn a business, at least high level, is to insure it. You have to understand some basics about the way that business functions.
Yeah.
So it's especially if they're buying the business, in this case, a real estate or income producing asset, what are you putting into it? What do you expect to get out of it? Because we're insuring not only the asset itself, but the cash flow that it produces through business income insurance. And what do you expect the value to be once you complete any upgrades or investments in that business that you have planned? So as I saw what the types of returns that these real estate investors were getting in 09, 2010, 2011, I thought I need to find a way to get into that game. And it always had a passion and interest in real estate. And partnered with a couple of clients that I saw doing well and began to build a single family rental portfolio. And we worked that for really until those returns dried up and the market shifted. But we did 20 something deals over a 10+ year period, just buy and hold. And that was a great strategy for us and did well.
Yeah, I agree with you that what you said about understanding a business, you have to be like a service provider that services that business. For myself, it was being a broker, and I had ambitions of getting in, but I had no idea what it meant to be in commercial real estate until you start calling. And somebody actually, I think I took a course and they showed me that, because I have a degree in psychology. So they showed me the income and expense formula.
Perfect for sales.
Yeah. I was like, oh, it's so simple. And it is simple until it's not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think just being a service provider to an industry is a helpful thing of understanding it.
absolutely. And if you can, in my case, fuse the passion and interest that you have in the industry that you're providing that service for, in this case, real estate, like I can talk real estate all day long. I'm not the foremost expert on all the different facets of it, but I love learning about the endless avenues or ways that you can make money in real estate. So if you can fuse that passion and interest in the thing you're providing a service for with your core business, I think that's just a really powerful combination. And that's really been the history of what we've done. When I got into this business in 2007, real estate was not our focus. That was something we built because I loved talking to real estate investors. I loved learning about what they were doing. I loved keeping up with the market. And in doing that, I think added a lot of value for them because I was up to date with what was happening. So I was able to better advise them on the insurance side. And at the same time, it helped my real estate investment hobby side business because I was in the know with what was going on and meeting the right people.
Yeah. I'll take a little bit of credit because back when we first met, you were a jack of all trades, and I was jacked up about being, in commercial real estate, which I guess I still am.
As
But
you should be.
yeah, I was like, Jay, you need to focus on multifamily. And
Yeah.
I think I gave you an initial list of people to go out and call, and you took it, from the races there, or took it to the races from there.
Yeah. Well, Stash, you literally said you need to be talking to my competition and then told me who they were. And that was amazing. That gave me an in to get to know the network. And you talk about learning the real estate investment game itself. I remember a conversation you and I had when you say it's simple till it's not. We were looking at some multifamily deal. We were at Mad Tree and they had those chalkboard high top tables,
Yeah.
raw on the high top. And I think it was a deal maybe you were looking at for yourself or something. And I'd done a number of these single family rentals and was interested in getting into some multifamily deals. And I was like, explain that deal for me. And you drew out the purchase price, like projected revenue, backed into the cap rate. And you're like, this is how it works. And my thought process was exactly that. That's really simple. Anybody could do that.
Yeah.
And the truth is, like, anybody can. Now, can it get really complex beyond that? For sure. But I think that is the beauty of real estate. There are really simple deals out there. Like, you can start with something that is incredibly simple and accessible. And I think that's been our story in the single family rental game. My gosh, when we first got into that, our whole model was, and these deals are not around anymore, but some version of that still exists. Our model was we want to be all in for $30,000, like purchase price and renovation, all in for 30. I was 24 or something, right? I was just started. And I'm like, man, if I have a partner and my wife is working, all in for 30 grand, like I have to come up with $7,500 and that's it. And I can buy an income producing asset, which at the time we could be all in for 30 grand and rent it for $50 a month. No debt. And I'm like, I should do this as much of this as long as I possibly can. And that's exactly what we did. So even if that deal isn't available today, versions of that still are. You don't have to go. I think there's like this idea where you have to go big out of the gate. I'm all for thinking big. That's not the only way to go.
Yeah, I'm victim of that. So how are you doing that with no debt?
Because we were all in for 30 grand. Like literally this was 2009 or 10.
Okay.
And we would buy, there were so many houses that were upside down or that were being repossessed by the bank that were in foreclosure. At that point in time, it was obviously a sad state of the market, but it did create opportunities. And if you got on the MLS and said, I want to look at single family houses for under $20,000 in this whatever zip code in Cincinnati, it wasn't a matter of, are there any? There were so many, you had to figure out which ones you didn't want to see. And I spent probably 5 years every weekend. We would just go through house after house and turn down deals for a few $100s, which in hindsight, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have gotten into all those.
I know. I look at my initial listings and it's, man, I should have bought everything that I was calling on, but hindsight's 2020.
I met somebody during that period, a woman who was further along in her career, and her name escapes me now, but she said, Jay, wake up. The world is on sale right now. And that was 100% true. The deals were out of this world.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about real estate and our mutual appreciation for it. You've got a really interesting practice. Maybe if you care or if you're willing to share, talk a little bit more about how you started with Camargo and then where you've taken it to and some of the struggles or challenges that you've faced and then overcome. Because I admire what you've done because you've taken a family business, nepotism, as you said, and then you've turned it into this amazing machine that you said you're very optimistic about. So if you could fill us in on, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. It's a big question, so feel free to direct me if I go too far down any tangent. But I got into the business in 2000, and as we mentioned, it was a family business, and is a great business. At the time, it was very much focused on home and auto insurance. We did have a small business insurance practice, but the primary focus was home and auto insurance. And I, saw that game was changing quickly.
Yeah.
And that is still absolutely a core part of what we do. But I wanted to make sure we diversified our portfolio, if you will, our book of business, our clientele, because there was so much competition coming from really well capitalized, either technology driven direct writers like your Progressives and Geicos, and now your branches and other types of insurtechs that were not even born then, but maybe in their infancy or like being born,
Yeah.
as well as really well capitalized agencies like us, but that have many millions of dollars through venture capital or private equity to do all kinds of other technology driven things to change that consumer experience. So I'm seeing these things happen, and also seeing that we are adding a ton of value that some of those competitors are not adding. Our clients come to us because they really want advice. They want to make sure they're getting the right thing. They want to make sure they have an advisor that actually cares. They want to make sure that that the right deal is not just the cheapest deal, but that they're getting the right coverage and they're getting the right price.
Yeah.
And they want somebody that can handle all that stuff for them. And I don't think that value is going anywhere. I think that has staying power for now till the end of time. But you have to get smart about the way you're delivering it so that you can stay competitive in the marketplace. So anyway, I'm seeing those things happening in the personal insurance market. And I'm also saying, okay, we want to build a commercial insurance division. And multifamily was really our first step into really building a commercial insurance practice 15 years ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And as that began to flourish over time, I wanted to make some bigger, bolder moves and needed to acquire full control of the company to be able to really do those things. So was able to acquire full control of that company. And at that point, once I had full control of it, we just tore the whole thing down and rebuilt it. Like tech stack, people, vision, mission, everything starting from ground zero. And there's a whole lot of things we did. If I think about the 80-20 rule of what was the 20% that we did that actually drove the 80% of our results, succeeding years of 20+% year after year growth, it was simple. It was, I need to make decisions that move beyond me, right? If I'm thinking about how I can sell more insurance, that's the wrong way to think. I need to be thinking about how to grow this organization. And at the time, that meant I needed to build a sales team. And I think if anybody has been in that family business environment, if the organization is not already at that point where they really have a vibrant and dynamic sales team, changing that mindset from like practitioner to building a sales team is a massive shift. It takes resources, like it takes a lot of money to get a team off the ground. Like you got to support people until they're supporting themselves. It takes a mindset shift of I'm going to invest my time in building them versus shut this phone up. Hold on.
Versus I'm going to spend my time on myself and going out finding my own deals.
Exactly. Those first few years when we restructured, I was in the office like latest 5 a.m, and I would try and get like my stuff done because I was still keeping the business afloat while building this team, right? So I had to get all my stuff done in the morning before anybody came in. And I would spend almost my entire day basically building and training my team. And it was a really tough few years. But if I look back at tying it into real estate, like at the end of the day, everything is in the business world is an income producing asset. I look at the best investments I ever made, building that team by far, financially, best investment I ever made. But from a personal and professional development standpoint, infinite. Like the learning and growth that came out of that is priceless.
Awesome. So you mentioned technology, and you've made some strides in that. But I saw a question on LinkedIn this morning that I wonder what your thoughts are. Do you think that technology and AI and all that will ever replace salespeople in your business and mine?
I think the simplest answer, it's a huge question. I would say the simplest answer is some of them.
Yeah.
Hopefully not you and me. No, I think the like my sort of bigger picture thoughts on that are, and I thought a lot about this when we were rebuilding our business. AI was not where it is today back then, but certainly the insurance world was changing extremely rapidly. And a lot of that was technology driven. And we went totally over the top with what we needed to do from a technology standpoint. There was a lot of great learning that came from it, but like we integrated everything from accounting all the way through to marketing. Like our from the information, the data coming from our insurance carriers to an integrated then CRM system to the sales side of that CRM system, the prospecting side, all the way through to the marketing side. Integrated that entire thing on Salesforce. And we were like a 10-person organization at the time. That was an insane move. It was not the right move for our company. But we
Because
learned
it was too much.
absolutely way too much. But I think to answer the question, what I learned from all that, once I deconstructed that crazy, incredibly expensive and expensive to manage tech stack and went with something simpler that actually helped us add value for our customers, was we needed to understand our value. It's like technology is great, but it's really easy, especially in industries where technology is changing the landscape quickly, to get wrapped up in it. And now I always bring it back to what is my value? What is our organization's value for our customers? And my technology decisions should be based on enhancing that. I should not just be building technology for the sake of trying to stay ahead of the curve or stay in front of what AI or whatever the next thing is. It's understand my value. And that's the beginning point. So when I think about salespeople, will it replace them? It's like it'll replace the ones that don't understand their value and are not aligning their value with their actions.
Right. Or just ones that are showing up to get a paycheck or what have you, and not striving to be. I look at technology, and Needle is an example of that. It's a tool, uh, not necessarily designed to replace the salesperson, but a tool to be able to help augment their job. And I think technology is going to help change how people work and function, but people like to deal with people, right? Like even just you think about a call versus a meeting. You can have a cold call or you can have a cold meeting, but at the end of each one of those, you're going to have a very different result because you're in person, face to face. Whereas if you just have a form, we've been pushing out a form for people to tell us what they want to buy because the market has changed or what their buyer criteria are. You can have as many forms as you want. It's just people are much more apt to interact with another person, and that's how we evolved.
And I think if I was give like the old man thing. If I were a young person today looking at my career, whether I'm an old man like myself now or somebody just entering the sales game or thinking, what I would be thinking is it like really big picture, am I moving upstream or not? And I think the further upstream I'm aiming, the less likely I am to be replaced by technology. And the more I can leverage tools to do to deliver my value. Whether that's I'm a multifamily broker and I'm selling larger properties, more complex deals, all kinds of technology that can probably help you do that. But technology is not going to replace a broker that is putting together a complex, large multifamily deal like that. I'll go on the record now and just say that's never going to happen. And I would say the exact same thing in insurance. If I am insuring a large, complex business operation, whether that is a multifamily portfolio or a manufacturing operation or anything else, there is a lot to that. And it goes beyond just putting pieces together. It's like aligning pieces with the business's needs and their own risk appetite. And there's that idea of moving upstream as a way to, I think, stay in front of the technology change and leverage it versus being afraid of what it's going to replace, I think is powerful.
Yeah. Switching topics a little bit, what's the best deal or what's the favorite deal that you've done, either as a salesperson in insurance or as a principal in a transaction?
My favorite thing to do is to recruit people into insurance. And here's why. Because I think most people have this idea that insurance is boring. And that is
I was victim of that before I met you.
Yeah. And I haven't even recruited you yet.
Yeah.
So imagine the day you're selling insurance. No, but it is such a dynamic field and there's so much money to be made if you're good at it. So I love talking to people that are in the B2B sales game that have tons of potential, but are maybe just selling a product where they've hit a ceiling with it. There's only so far. Everything you sell has a ceiling somewhere.
Yeah.
Or either have to think bigger about what you're doing or just change games and sell something different. So when I can find people that are selling a thing and I see their potential and I can show them the amazing path, the amazing life that a career in insurance can offer, I love that. So those deals are my favorite.
Bringing in people. Nice.
Yeah.
What are some of the toughest lessons you've learned in your business career? Biggest challenges that you've overcome, things like that?
There's so many.
Yeah, there definitely are.
Yeah. I think if I get really real and candid for a minute here, like when I first got into insurance, I was terrified to be on the phone. Like I had serious like social anxiety that was really hard for me to overcome. And that first year really sucked. But I was just really committed to making it happen. If it had not been for the fact that it was a family business and I just had this vision of I'm going to get into this and I'm going to take it and I'm going to run with it, I probably would have just found a different career. But I'm so grateful that I didn't and that I just faced that discomfort and that fear and just went and did it.
What did you do to overcome that?
Yeah. So I signed up for one of the top commercial insurance producer sales programs in the country. It's the Pace Setter program. It just happens to be based in Columbus, Ohio, because that's where State Auto was located before they were acquired by Liberty. Ohio is the mecca of insurance companies. I think we have more insurance companies per capita in Ohio than almost any other state in the country. So it's not a surprise that like one of the leading programs is based in Ohio.
Is that because the state has made their climate such to attract insurance companies, or is it just insurance companies like to be in Ohio?
They love the corn, man. I don't know. No, I'm sure a much better answer to that question, but what I would tell you is it's not a recent development. It has been that way for many years. Part of it is just geography. Like we're in what they call a profit pocket, where we're until climate change changed all those rules, where there just weren't as many weather-related losses here as there were in other parts of the country.
So it was easy to operate here, so to speak.
It was, yes, easy to operate here, combined with the fact that there was a generally advantageous business climate and economies that were dynamic and all those things.
Okay. Anyway, you went to the Pacesetter program though.
Yes. So you go to Columbus and basically every office tower is another insurance company. It's auto owners, State Auto, Nationwide, like literally you can just go down the street and it's insurance company row. So I'm up there and it's a 1 year long program. And the reason I did it is that it is like traditional B2B, door to door, foot pound, street pounding sales. And you have a coach that is on you every week. They kick you out of the program if you don't hit your numbers. And it was like, all right, I'm just going to go do this. And I'm not going to stick my neck out there as the son of the boss and not complete this damn program. So I'm going to have to go knock on this many doors, make this many calls. They were tracking it all. And I'm just going to have to get it done, or I'm going to fail and I'm just going to move on to something different.
Right.
So I did that. And this is how I was so scared to go knock on businesses' doors that I drove to the crappiest strip malls I could find, like on the outskirts of the city that were like they were businesses shutting down everywhere. And those were the doors I was knocking on. So I was like, if I have a panic attack knocking on these doors, nobody here, like they'll be out of business next week anyway, so it won't matter. But that was the first time in my business career I was like, I just gotta man up here and I gotta find a way to power through this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was getting started, my first job was I worked for one of my first jobs was a technology SaaS company. And they gave me this book of how to overcome fear of cold calling anxiety. And I don't remember what the book said. I don't think I actually read it. It just had this gorilla sitting on top of an old phone, maybe even a rotary phone, and pick it up. And I remember my boss just looking at me like, I was like, okay, all right. Okay. I'm not a big fan of you, but I get it. And then I had some other my first, not my first broker, but one of the brokers I worked for when I was in California. The guy he was 70 at the time and he was still cold calling. And so it's easy as a salesperson to get wrapped up in your spreadsheets and things like that. And there were times when I wouldn't be calling enough and he would call me into his office because I was here in a cube and then he was like right there, 5 yards away, 20 feet away, something like that. And he would give me serious talks about why I needed to be on the phone more. And it's true. So now my default way of being, I'll have 100 emails in my inbox, but if I haven't hit my calls for the day, or I prefer to be on the phone. That's how you get things done. You have to service emails, but really getting things done is on the phone or in person.
Yeah. I don't think anybody ever said, oh, how did you hit that sales number this year? Oh, like I got more emails done. No, I made more calls. Like
Yeah.
that's how you get it done.
Yeah.
More calls, more meetings, whatever it is. It's building that network, getting out there and just creating the relationship.
One of the things we've been doing and I'm curious if you have any innovative prospecting techniques, but one of the things we've done this year especially is go and take pictures of properties, almost intentionally like shitty pictures, so that you know that I was there. Like I'll have my rear view mirror or the hood of my car in the picture, so that it's not, oh, it's a picture off of the internet. It's no, I was here. And by the way, your dumpsters are overflowing. Maybe I caught it on trash day, but we've gotten some great opportunities that way. I'm curious if you said door knocking. Like I've never done that. That seems a little bit terrifying, but I'm sure I can do it.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. It turns out it's not as scary as I thought it would be. I think back to that 80-20 rule. So I don't think I'll have an answer that's gonna wow everybody here, but it's just reality for us. Is we did when we went really heavy on trying to have this completely integrated tech stack and really get into sort of developing some of our own stuff within the Salesforce environment. We did all kinds of things from a marketing and prospecting perspective. But when it actually came down to it, it was like, what was driving new revenue? Calling people. That's what was driving new revenue. So, each producer, I think, has their own flavor. And I think that's been one of my learnings as the leader of the organization is I try and just help each one, depending on where they are, maybe discover their flavor that works well for them, and then be there as depending on what they need. Sometimes it's a cheerleader because it can get tough. Sometimes it's a coach. Sometimes people just want to be held accountable. I want you to be knocking on my door if I'm not making enough sales calls. Be that boss that you had that would come in and talk to you, be like, you're not on the phone enough.
Yeah.
People actually appreciate that. So I think it's for our organization. It's really just trying to help each individual salesperson discover their own magic or zone of genius, if you will, and help them lean into it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good advice. Let's see. I'm looking at these questions here, but I feel like we're at about a half hour. I feel like we've had a great conversation. What's the best book that you've read recently, or any good recommendations?
Oh my gosh. I'm reading 10x is easier than 2x right now.
Yeah,
And every morning my head is like exploding. I'm like, this is the best book ever written.
that's great.
Um, yeah. Have you read it?
I saw it on my Audible queue, so I've got some extra credits, so I'm gonna buy it from there.
It is, I'm only about a third of the way through it. And it's not what I thought it would be. It's very much about mindset, with the general idea being it's if you can really put yourself in the mindset of I'm going to 10x this thing, whether that's like my own personal sales this year or my organization, if you're the leader of an organization or departmental head, whatever it is. If I'm going to 10x this is what I need to do. It's like all of a sudden your thinking changes. It's not, oh, I just need to make more sales calls. It's what kind? Like, what if I'm actually going to do 10 times more? I got to be making the right sales calls.
Right,
And then you start thinking about, okay, what are all the other things I'm doing during my day that are not driving that 80% of the results? And finding ways to either just stop doing them or delegate them, automate them, whatever it is. But that whole, maybe that's tactical, but if that whole mindset shift, I really loved of they walk you through the book walks you through thinking of the 10x leaps you've made in your own life. And actually, I thought of you, Stash, because your journey is you repeatedly moved up in deal size, right? And that didn't just happen. It was like because you made it happen and you had to act
yeah.
differently, you had to think differently. And I think in my own life, I think part of moving, I moved my family to Spain at the age of 30
Is
business.
where you're talking to us from now, which is awesome.
Right. This is where I live. So I had this sort of two-tiered goal, which when I'm reading this book, it's like that was 10x thinking. Like I'm going to scale this business and I'm going to live anywhere I want. That's just it was almost like non-negotiable for me. That's what I'm going to do.
It was non-negotiable for you.
Yeah, actually, it turns out it was. Yeah. And the book walks you through if you truly start thinking 10x, there's going to be people around you that try and bring you down. They're going to be like, no, you can't do that because that's different. Here's the reasons why X, Y, and Z. And that happened repeatedly. And I'm like, no, this is what I'm going to do. Of course, I can live somewhere else and grow this business. Have you seen any of these huge corporations? Do you know where their CEO lives? No, it doesn't matter. Like these are
Right.
global companies. If you can run a global company from wherever, you can definitely run a small business from. That's just easier. But then thinking that way forces you to begin to act differently. It was like all of a sudden my priorities changed when I was really serious about running the business from another country and not just running it, but continuing to scale it. It was like, we need an advisory board. Like, I need some higher level C suite type of professionals in our organization. That changed the game for us. It was like, I need a highly capable COO to be boots on the ground for me. So we made that investment probably before we otherwise would have. That is already paying incredible dividends for us.
That's awesome. And
Um,
you recently did that. That's awesome.
or like they were building a sales team. It was like part of that was like, I'm going to live somewhere else. If I'm going to do that, I'm going to need a sales team. Earlier, I said that was the best financial investment I ever made. So
Right.
part of that was just that different kind of thinking. And once you really lean into it, there's a lot of power in it. And that book, just the way it breaks it down, is it's a great read and I think powerful.
That's great. Yeah, I've got it here. I'm gonna add it to my queue of things.
Thank you.
Well, I'm listening to a book right now. I just started it called The Power Broker, and it's about a guy. It's a long book, so brace yourself. But it's about Robert Moses, who was the guy that basically shaped New York City from I think the 40s through the 60s, built 300 and some or 700 parks and 300 baseball diamonds and built all the bridges and all the parkways. And so that's interesting. But another one that I have just done is Economic Facts and Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. That's a good one.
Ooh,
And then I started 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and I haven't gotten much into it, but it's good. It's interesting.
nice.
Yeah.
I tend to go back and forth between historical fiction, which is I can just read historical fiction all the time. I don't necessarily, sometimes I do get some interesting business ideas out of them, or at least
Yeah.
perspective. And then the more business or professional oriented books. But on the, I got really into the Ken Follett series, which it follows basically families throughout multiple generations through interesting periods of time.
Hmm.
And one of them recently, I was like, it made me think about the challenges that we face today compared to the challenges that the average person faced even 100 years ago, but certainly in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
And it was like, man, if I'm ever feeling like I'm having a tough day, at least I don't have to do that. And that's what everybody had to do back then. They were literally building a wall around their town because they knew that the invading forces were coming and they were all going to die unless they built the wall in time. And oh, by the way, they had no fresh water, so they all had to drink beer because it wouldn't make them sick. So Matt, you're the leader of this town, and he's trying to keep basically a bunch of really drunk people on task to build this wall before they were all killed by the invading forces. This was the challenge they're dealing with. I'm like, all right, my Wednesday today in this meeting is really not that hard.
Yeah. That's good. I'll have to check that out. I like excuse me. I like listening to either biographies or histories or kind of insightful things to try and just better understand the world around me. So that's
For
what I'm
sure.
doing. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you about insurance or otherwise?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day. Ping me, connect with me, shoot me a message. You can also book an appointment with me on our website, camargoinsurance.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, Jay, thank you so much, my friend. It's always a pleasure, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Stash. You too.